Good morning. Welcome back to Daybreak. You're watching News Review. We're back with Honorable Gladys Wanga from Homa Bay County, Jacqueline Mugo from the Federation of Kenya Employers, and Rose Omamo from the Central Organization of Trade Unions. And you are looking at the stories making headlines. And I want us to focus on things Labor Day or labor affairs, issues affecting the labor sector. And there's a story on the Standard, page 6 to be exact. State begins review of worker salaries. There's a brief there that is given that the CS for National Treasury, Henry Rotich, had directed that chairpersons who had been earning a honorarium at a flat rate of 80,000 per month since July 2005 be paid between 100,000 and 150,000 shillings beginning July 1st of last year, in line with SRC job evaluation. So there's a committee that has been formed to look at the state corporations, to recategorize them into what is workable now. So the question I want to ask is that, yes, we see that there was a review back in 2005, some allowances that have been paid as such since then, and now there is this review. What justifies this course of action? And even as we go into it, do we risk having calls from the rest of the civil service asking for more money? We start with you, Gladys Wanga.
Yeah, well, I think looking at what this story says, the task force is meant to look at, to review terms and conditions for chairpersons, CEOs, chancellors and vice chancellors of public universities, board members, and members of unionizable staff of state corporations. And it says that the last time it was done was 2004. So I think let them look at the terms. I mean, this is 15 years ago. Let them review, let them see, make recommendations, and then it goes back to the SRC to see how to rationalize it, you know, together with what other state officers are running. So I personally see this as an opportunity to look, because you can't also say that, and Kenyans, I mean, Kenyans are not at a good place right now. So when you start talking about any reviews, they start to think, are these guys looking for a pay rise and us guys are suffering this much? But because this is just, you know, looking at the terms, reviewing, and then making recommendations to SRC, let's see how that goes.
On the other side of the coin, one would say then it will continue to balloon our wage bill, which for the past few years have consistently been at billions. Let me just give you an example. 2012 to 2013, our public wage bill was about 465 billion. The year 2013-2014, 522. The year after that, it continued to increase to 568. 2015-2016, 627 billion. One would say yes. Of course, right now, the living standards in Kenya are very difficult for the common mwananchi. On the other side, one would argue that it will continue to balloon our wage bill.
Yeah, and one of the constitutional roles of the Salaries and Remuneration Commission is to look at how to manage that wage bill. So they will look at this report alongside the other, you know, other existing conditions and see what to, you know, how to deal with it. That's what I can say about it. Since it's very preliminary, really. We are just looking at a task force that has been formed to review. So once they come up with the report, and somebody has said I will not want to preempt or speculate on the proposal for a pay rise and would rather wait for the report. Yeah. So let us wait for the report, you know, before we speculate. Okay.
Even as we do that, Rose, from the perspective of the workers, yes, this may happen. It may review this, but you see, there's that concern of more demand, increased demand for pay. Are the workers doing enough to sustain those salaries in terms of their productivity? What need we do so that even as we ask for more money, then we are also able to raise the productivity so there are more returns to satisfy that demand?
Yes, from the workers' perspective, I would say that, one, I would say review of salaries is good, because even us as workers' representatives, we believe in negotiating collective bargaining agreements for our workers, which would mean review of salaries. And looking specifically at this, if the salary review was done in 2005, 14 years down the line, truly there need to be some review. But as Gladys said, we need to wait and see. But then from the productivity part of it, I would say that workers work hard to make sure that they produce enough so that when they demand for salaries, they demand for part of what they have produced. And so I believe that salary review is very important for workers, and productivity or production is also key. You see, workers are asset number one of these employers because they are the contributors of the production in an industry. And so with that cannot go without an appreciation or even recognizing the work that they have done. And that is why we normally negotiate collective bargaining agreements and review worker salaries every 2 years, so that at least they can be compensated on the work that they have done.
Right. Jacqueline Mugo, do you agree with that, especially now that the Federation of Kenya Employers have constantly come out to say, listen, raising wage bills is not the answer when it comes to workers' poor pay?
The challenge about how the country has gone about reviewing salaries and terms and conditions of service is that we don't pay attention to productivity, and I'm glad Rose has talked about it. Because on one hand, you want to review the terms of your workers to make sure that the benefits are comparable with what's happening in the market. But then the issue of sustainability and affordability must also come in. What has that enterprise realized in terms of productivity gains for the period you're reviewing? And that nobody talks about. It's unfortunate we are discussing this on the eve of Labor Day, because Labor Day has been equated to wage reviews. And wage reviews, in the opinion of Kenyans, is a wage increase. A wage review does not necessarily mean a wage increase. In the job evaluation that was done by SRC, for instance, you'll find that there are jobs that are undervalued, so yes, there is need to do a raise. There are those that are actually okay. Then there are those that are above the pay scale. So you have to rationalize. Right. And I think that is what we need to look at as Kenyans. In talking about salary increases, can we look at the performance of the economy? Because the growth in GDP that is being touted of 5%, 5.7, 6.3, does not translate to an increase in the money flowing in the economy, in the money available to enterprises. So where's the disconnect between these economic indicators and the reality on the ground? They're disconnected.
And now that you brought that issue, so yes, we see the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics indicating that the gross domestic product grew by 6.3%. Agriculture contributed 34% to that, which grew by about 6.4%. Then we have other factors, for instance, the transport and storage growing by about 8%. For electricity supply, a growth of about 10%. So this growth, which unfortunately is being attributed to better rains in the year 2018, has it translated to higher productivity from the perspective of workers first, the quality of goods that we produce and the returns we get from these goods?
It has not. In fact, if you look at the issue of jobs, if you look at the year 2014 to 2018 and the capacity of the formal sector to create jobs, it's gone down by almost 43%. Because in the year 2014, we had 138,000 jobs created. In this latest report, it's only 78,000.
The report says about 65,000 formal jobs.
65,600 formal jobs in 2018.
Yes, but if formal sector has actually reduced its capacity in job creation, most of the jobs are coming from the informal sector, which has gone up by 9%. So in our view as employers, you're actually increasing informality. And if you're looking at the formal sector as a payer of tax, which is one of the other issues we have, then you are increasingly taxing a shrinking sector. And that's a matter of concern, because we've been talking about decent jobs. We're talking about regulating the labor sector, but you're increasingly regulating a much smaller segment of the economy. And the growth projections in GDP, according to the World Bank, 5.7% for 2019 and 5.9% next year, is not actually translating into better jobs, more jobs.
So why do we have a disconnect? Yes, we have a healthy GDP according to CS Nirotich, 6.3%, but that is not translating to the salaries of the common wananchi. Where is that disconnect?
Because GDP is an economic term. It measures growth in the economy using factors that for us ordinarily don't count. If you look at Kenya realistically, in the last 1 year, we've been affected by drought.
the rains have just come, the crop is late, farmers have not been able to plant, there's widespread informality, as I'm saying, and a low rate of job creation. Young Kenyans need jobs, there are no jobs. So who is doing this productivity? It's the informal economy that we are not actually measuring. So there have been discussions globally as to whether GDP is the best indicator of economic performance of an economy. I'm not an economist, but there's a disconnect between the numbers that are touted by the economists of the world and what we're actually measuring. For me, it's simple. If the informal sector is the one that's growing, then we know that's where our people are. What conditions are they working under?
Right.
What are the health and safety standards in that sector? And how can we encourage them to move into the formal economy so that you can actually also expand the tax base?
Gladys Wanga, from a legislative point of view, we have a government every other time coming in with a manifesto of the things that they want to achieve, and one of those is create this much jobs. We hear of reports, we created 800,000 jobs, but as she says, most of them you realize that they were in the informal sector. So what is this that we are not doing to ensure that whatever we create, whatever GDP we grow with, is sustainable to the extent that it is felt at the income level of households?
Yeah, I think we've seen manifestos coming in of you're going to create 1 million jobs you know, a year, or, you know, whatever else that is, and that has not materialized because, you know, where are we supposed to be creating jobs? And this is why we were excited when we had the Big Four agenda, manufacturing being one of them, because if you were to spur up a sector such as manufacturing, then you would see, if you were to spur up, you know, if you were to create industries, if we were to revive, you know, our industries that have stalled, this is where our people can find jobs. And now you see our industries are all asleep. I mean, many of them are asleep. And if you look at, for example, the region where I come from, I mean, Homa Bay County, the whole of Nyanza region, where we had fish factories, they are no longer, you know, up and running. We had Kikomi, for example, in Kisumu, it's no longer, you know, up and running. We had, you know, Rivertex, there's been a bit of, you know, pumping in of money there, but we still see people happy to import, you know, happy to import simple things as uniforms. And this is why I'm happy that the Ministry of Interior said we are not going to import police uniforms, come rain, come sunshine. And it is a good thing because we can now tell Rivertex, can you produce fabric for us to do our police uniforms, and then give those fabrics to NYS and other, you know, small people like Ngilu in Kitui to do the uniforms. This is where we're going to create our jobs from. But we want to see the budget, you know, reflecting money going into these sectors.
Right.
Because we cannot be spending all our money on roads, on, you know, all this, you know, transport infrastructure, and less money going to actual manufacturing industries.
Do you feel the effort? Currently, Parliament is looking at the budget policy statement. Do you feel the effort of the government and the legislators moving towards that direction, reallocating money for those particular sectors?
I think one of the things that we've said is, can we see more money in the sectors that we have said are the Big Four or are our priority areas? But then the government has also argued that some of these sectors and some of these areas are areas that are going to be private sector, you know, sort of PPP related. But we're going to be examining the estimates, which as has been said, are going to be tabled this week. And I think as Parliament, our role is going to be to make sure that money, you know, follows our vision and our dream as a country.
So we know the problems, we have the solutions, e.g., like you said, strengthening our manufacturing industry. Why is it that the Kenyan government is so reluctant to do this? By now, Kenya should be having a thriving manufacturing industry, from sugar to cotton to the uniforms you've given a clear example of, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
I know. I mean, and if you talk about cotton, for example, we need cotton to manufacture the fabric, but it's a dead industry, and you're right. Probably.
Can I also just say something about that? Because the government's agenda for job creation was very much welcome by us, especially the workers' representatives. But we are now hit so much because we see formal employment going into informal a lot because of the imports, as Gladys has said. Look at some of the biggest industries that has been here in Kenya, like Firestone, the Samia Africa, such a huge industry closing because now somebody has come in to start importing tires, you see? And then our local assembling plant is now closed completely. So how can we say that we will create jobs when already we are taking jobs by ourselves and bringing jobs from outside? Because when you are importing like tires, bringing them into Kenya and closing an industry which could, you know, assemble the tires here, it's really worrying. And I look at even what is happening right now in Kenya vehicle manufacturers, the Volkswagen.
Right.
You see, the government said that they will create 2,000 jobs in that industry by bringing completely knocked down parts. But now what is coming is the CKDs, SKDs, and that is not creating jobs for our people. So if the government would invest in reviving the industries like Kikomi, so that we could make our own clothes from here, we could produce our cotton, make our own clothes, bring employment, that would be really wonderful.
But I wanted to add on that vehicle manufacturing. I must thank the president, because the other day we saw the directive that the government is only going to buy vehicles that are assembled here, locally. So I think that is good, a step in the right direction. If you're going to buy vehicles only that are assembled here, it means that, you know, people must set up assembly plants here, so that we, because the government is also the biggest buyer of some of these
Let's hope that translates from paper to the actual.
But we saw Pujo already being assembled here, and so we've already seen some progress in that direction.
Lazaro Nyambok says that whoever is expecting salary increase this Labor Day is a daydreamer. Government itself is surviving on huge loans. The Chinese have refused to grant us other huge loans. Lazaro Nyambok, those are your views. So we take a short break, but when we return, we'll be looking at how the situation has been in the labor sector. We've had several strikes or disputes. We'll be looking at that and see how they affect the economy, the morale and productivity of workers. But that is after the break. You can text us your views on 2242 or Twitter as Citizen TV Kenya, at Samgituku, at Zinzi_K, or you can call us on 0719 777 777 or 0742